The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Yaron Brook Show on this Wednesday, September 3rd. I am in Florence, Italy. There's the Uffizi Gallery today, a phenomenal museum, both because it has some of the best collection, maybe the best collection of Renaissance art in the world, maybe it in the Vatican Museum. And it has an amazing collection of Roman sculpture. Anyway, I'll have to do a show on art in Florence and Florence in general. Maybe we'll do that as a members-only show over the weekend. But yeah, it's been fun and enjoyable, and a lot of interesting, a lot of beautiful art we got to see today. Raphael and Leonardo and Michelangelo and Caravaggio, 3 paintings by Caravaggio. So good day. All right. News. Let's jump into the news. Everybody is hailing this decision by a judge in the Google antitrust case. They're hailing this as a victory for Google. They remember this is a judge who ruled that Google was indeed guilty of violating the antitrust laws, and that it's 90% dominance of the search engine market constituted, in a sense, monopoly power. And as a consequence of that, today the judge ruled. Now, the good news is the government didn't get what it wanted. So to the extent that you want to count that as good news, that's good news. Government didn't get what it wanted. The government wanted Google to spin off Meta. Meta's not Google. To spin off Chrome and to spin off, potentially even spin off Android, which would be huge if that had been the ruling. The government luckily did not get what it wanted. It got a much more reduced ruling. So basically, the judge's most significant limit that he placed on Google bars it from striking deals with browser companies. This is on the Wall Street Journal article about the ruling. Striking deals with browser companies and device makers that require them to exclusively use its search engine, Chrome browser, or AI products. The ruling further bars Google from tying the licensing of its app store on Android devices to the use of those products. So in other words, it's trying to rein in this idea of exclusivity, of contracts that limit what other companies can do. If they use a Google product, can they use other products, and so on. The ruling also forces Google, would be funny if it wasn't so sad, it forces Google to share some search data, in the name of, explicitly in the name of, giving competitors a shot at building the scale they need to offer better search results. So Google is supposed to help its competitors. The judge said that data sharing was necessary to dilute the advantage Google gets from paying to be the default search engine. He didn't require the company to share advertising data. Well, that's good. Now, this is after 5 years in court, a 5-year battle, where the Justice Department sued Google in the waning hours. So this is a Trump administration lawsuit. This was initiated during the first Trump administration and continued, of course, by the Biden administration. The judge had already ruled that Google engaged in so-called illegal practices to preserve its search engine monopoly. And then, of course, he held another stage of the trial to decide on what the remedy should be. Now, yes, of all the possible remedies, this is pretty light and that's good. And the stock market responded positively on Google shares and Apple shares, because this maintains the relation between Google and Apple. It doesn't break that up. So the market views this as positive news for Google. But that, I think, distracts us from the massive injustice that's going on here. Google has done nothing to violate anybody's rights. Google has done nothing that should be illegal. Other than, the primary thing Google has done that has pissed off everybody is being incredibly successful. It's provided the best product, and it has been adopted by the most people, by an overwhelming majority of people. Google is being penalized here, as antitrust always does, is being penalized for its success. And while, all the court is doing is saying certain contracts you can't write, but that's, this is the great fallacy of antitrust law, one of the great fallacies of antitrust law. It's as if the court knows what contracts shouldn't be. It's as if the court understands the second, third, fourth level effects of changing contractual relations. Because the reality is that antitrust has had a horrible history of rejecting certain types of contractual agreements that have led to significantly less optimal economic outcomes, and of course that constitute violation of individual rights. What business is it of the government? What business is it of the government, of the courts? What kind of contract I write with you, as long as it abides by the basic principles of contracts, which all of these do? Why is the court getting involved in the terms, in exclusivity or non-exclusivity? And no rights are being violated here. Nobody's worse off. This is a contract between informed individuals, my legal, Google's legal team and Apple's legal team. The court knows better than they do. The court believes that it needs to intervene here to protect whom exactly? Who suffers? Who's the victim? Yes, Google has 90% market share, but we all pay exactly zero to use it. And yeah, it's hard for competitors. It really is. That's what it means to be a successful company. That's what happens when you are a successful company. It's hard for people to compete with you. That's the definition of success. If it was easy to compete with you, you wouldn't be successful. So yeah, hard for companies. Although, again, AI is going to change the whole search paradigm. It's going to change the way we use the internet. It's going to change the way we search for things, how we access data. And the judge acknowledged that. And yet, what happens in the future is irrelevant. So, in spite of the fact that I understand that people are celebrating because this is the least bad outcome, I want to emphasize the fact that it's still bad. This court, the whole antitrust legal framework is corrupt, and it needs to be called corrupt. It needs to be wiped out, wiped clean, start over. America invented this, the Sherman Act invented antitrust. This is an American invention, and a very damaging economic one at that. So let businesses sign whatever contracts they want. Let them run their businesses any way they want. As long as they're not committing fraud, lying, cheating, stealing, it's none of the government's business. Antitrust laws, from the Sherman Act to the Clayton Act, to all the iterations since, are immoral, unjust, should be wiped from the books, should start over with call it free market, free of government intervention, government control, free of antitrust laws, trying to tell companies they are too successful. Don't be too successful. It really is a travesty. The whole legal, what would you call it? Tradition, the legal mechanisms of antitrust. Unfortunately, the United States exported its antitrust laws to other countries, and indeed today, for example, the EU antitrust laws are worse than the American antitrust laws. We invented it and then exported it to the rest of the world. It is sad. This administration is the gift. Well, is it a gift? It's the lie that keeps on lying, the gift that keeps on giving, the lie that keeps on lying. I mean, it's the economic ignorance of the people running this administration is second to none. I mean, literally second to none. I mean, I've heard really, really dumb things being said by Treasury secretaries under Obama and under Biden, and the really, really, really bad Keynesian nonsense and stuff. But I have to say that Treasury Bassett, who I thought was one of the good guys at the beginning of this administration, is really making an effort to put himself in the position of being the Treasury Secretary who's saying the dumbest things ever. I mean, really. I know some of you think I'm too harsh on the Trump administration. I just have to call it the way I see it. And this is Treasury Secretary's official Twitter account. This is what he says. Tariffs are delivering historic results for the American people. Yeah, my comment. Yes, in terms of raising prices and raising the cost of living and reducing manufacturing and eliminating manufacturing jobs and making it generally very difficult for businesses to do business in America. But other than that, historic results, these historic results. Even the mainstream media is starting to admit it. I'm curious. It would be great if he had attached to this tweet the links to the articles where the mainstream media is indeed admitting the amazing, historical, fantastic, unbelievably good results of these tariffs. All I see, particularly in the mainstream media, if you count Wall Street Journal, mainstream media that specializes kind of in economic issues, all I see is articles about the horrors and the downside of the tariff policy. He continues, I've said total tariff revenue could reach $300 billion this year. Wait a minute, didn't Trump say $8 trillion? I mean, this is like less than 10% of that. This is like less than 5% of that. I mean, who's right? Is it Trump? Is it Bassett? Is either one of them right? What's going on? It doesn't matter with this administration because reality doesn't matter. I mean, facts don't matter, and it just has no significance one way or the other. All right. So then he says, and this is the kicker. This is what places this tweet, elevates it to the status of legendary in terms of stupidity, ignorance, or just in Besant's case, I think it's just plain out lying in order to make something that's bad appear good. Notice that I've said total tariff revenue could reach $300 billion a year, but it could be much higher. Just change that and says, I've said our tax increase will generate $300 billion of revenue. That wouldn't read quite as nice to the American people as, total tariff revenue, somebody else pays that. But we all know who pays it. We do. So the American people pay it. And therefore, so we've just instituted a new, granted limited, sales tax on the American people. And it's generating $300 billion a year. We haven't cut income tax, we haven't cut other taxes, but it's generating, and we're all excited, we're all thrilled by that. But this is the line that really wins him, Every 300 billion adds 1% to GDP. With tariffs alone, growth could hit 5%. All right, slow down, guys. You got to think this through. He says every $300 billion of new tax revenue add 1% to GDP. Wow. I mean, so he's telling us that the Democrats and Keynes have been right all along. If you want to increase GDP, if you want to create economic growth, what you need to do is increase taxes. I mean, this is a stunning statement. Every 300 billion adds 1% of GDP. That's tariffs alone. Growth could hit 5% because of tariffs. Taxes. Increase GDP and could cause GDP to go up 5%. Wow. I mean, Republicans now are saying that taxes increase economic growth and, in a sense, provide a Keynesian stimulus. It used to be, didn't Republicans, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but didn't Republicans used to say that taxes retard economic growth? And by the way, they're not spending $300 billion more. They're spending what they're spending. This just means they'll borrow less. They'll spend exactly the same, but they'll borrow less. All right, so yeah, I mean, this has to be one of the dumbest economic statements ever by a Treasury Secretary, and I'm including some really bad Treasury Secretaries in there, including some really bad Democrats, but we're at the point where Republicans are worse than Democrats when it comes to these things. It takes some skill to come up with these lies. And again, Bassett is too smart not to know that he is lying. In my opinion, for what it's worth. All right, let's see. What did we want to talk about? Yes. Today the news is going fast, so we'll see how long the show is. We're definitely going to get into that second hour, so don't forget to ask Super Chat questions. I could set up one of those Anne never fails to amuse me and make me laugh. That's good. Thank you, Anne. Don't forget, I could set up one of those goals to get the Super Chat going, to get the blood going, to get people to make contributions. Maybe you're waiting for a goal and only then will you make a contribution. Okay, we're going to go easy on you today. Instead of 30, we're going to make it 20. Any color, any amount, and we're going to give you 45 minutes instead of an hour. That'll be our goal for today. So 20 super chats over the next 45 minutes between now and just after 5 o'clock my time. Let's see. Well, no, 5 o'clock East Coast time, and we'll see how good you are achieving these YouTube mandated goals. All right. Let's see. Sometimes you just need to stir things up a little bit and get the juices going, and we go for it. All right. Some new developments with regard to the Epstein. I think this is Epstein case. The House of Representatives has released a bunch of new material. Well, no, not new material. They've released a bunch of material regarding Jeffrey Epstein. Now, it turns out almost all the material they've released has already been released, so there's nothing really new there. But they promised to release more, and indeed Massey, who's creating no end of problems for, for Trump. Trump's not happy with him. What was that? Somehow I lost the, there it is. I somehow closed that. Massey is defying the White House and has filed what's called a discharge petition to force a House vote on releasing all the Epstein investigative files. Now this is gaining bipartisan support from figures like, from Democratic congressmen and some Republicans like Nancy Mace, Lauren Bobbitt, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all the crazies in with Massey on this one in terms of MAGA getting it done, and so Massey's really pushing to get everything. Now, it's interesting the extent to which Trump is really resisting this. I mean, today he was asked about again the Epstein thing. And, so the reporter says, there be survivors of Jeffrey Epstein speaking at the press conference on Capitol Hill. They're calling for these case files to be released. And Trump says, this is a Democratic hoax that never ends. It's a hoax. It's a Democratic hoax. Jeffrey Epstein didn't exist, or he didn't do any of the things that he was accused of doing. And it's just a Democratic hoax. So don't pay any attention to it. Don't pay any attention to them. Of course, if anything, it's a Republican hoax because the Republicans are ones who are constantly harping about this, constantly talking about this. And now Trump, for reasons we could speculate about, but we're not going to, basically is covering it up, calling it a hoax, diverting attention, not releasing the files, undermining and undercutting the whole thing in any way that they can. God, there's a mosquito. There's a mosquito like buzzing around my office. He's just waiting. He's probably already bitten me 3 times now. With a damn. All right. Anyway, he's here. I'll try to. If you see me jump up and grab at something, I'm killing the mosquito. In the meantime, today on Capitol Hill, there was indeed a press conference with a number of Epstein survivors, victims, and they are saying that they are going to release their own list. To quote one of them, "We know who abused us. We saw who came and went. This list would be survivor-led for survivors." So the victims are going to take matters into their own hands and make a list of names. Now, they have to be careful because they could easily be sued, but if they're confident in certain people, it's going to be interesting. We will compile the names we all know were regularly in Epstein's world. Now, again, whether we learn anything new from this, I don't know, but it is interesting to see kind of the back and forth that's going on here in terms of this. Now, one thing does seem clear is nobody seems to be implicating Trump, but he seems to be unbelievably defensive about the whole thing. So if it's not Trump who's going to be implicated, is it significant donors to Trump? Is it people in the Trump universe? I mean, NBC just asked an entire panel of Epstein victims if they ever saw or heard Donald Trump doing anything inappropriate in relation to Epstein, and they all said no. So, why is he covering it up? Senator Massey at the press conference says, I think it's shameful that this has been called a hoax. Hopefully today we can clear that up. This is not a hoax, this is real. They are real survivors, they are real victims to this criminal enterprise, and the perpetrators are being protected because they're rich, powerful political donors in Washington, D.C. Now, you know how extensive this thing is in terms of, is there some big conspiracy here? Was there a network? Was there really a network? You know, I have to say, I don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows. Was it just Epstein was a creep and he did horrible things to people, and he did rape and sexually assault women? But to what extent did other people participate other than Ghislaine? To what extent other men participated? To what extent did they sexually abuse? Did they sleep with underage girls? We just don't know. There literally is no evidence. There's nothing to suggest that this is anything more than Epstein's a creep, and a criminal creep at that. We will find out. We will find out over the next, maybe we will find out if there's more to this or not, or maybe we'll never find out. Maybe Trump will manage to keep it shut down, for a long time. All right. I mean, we know some stuff, but we don't, none of this is being brought to court. None of this is really, we've heard both sides of a story. We've heard a lot of accusations. Some of them panned out, it seems. Some of them did not. We just don't know. And exactly how this supposed network worked. I mean, we don't have the facts. So we can wait and see, and we can jump to conclusions. Hey, it's more fun to jump to conclusions. Why wait and see? But hopefully we'll get more information. Hopefully all this pressure will work. Hopefully we'll learn a lot more, and we'll be able to talk about it, in a more educated way. All right, as I reported on yesterday, the United States carried out a strike against a drug-carrying boat from Venezuela. At least that's the story, that's the claim the Pentagon is making. This is just days after the Pentagon deployed warships to the southern Caribbean to stop the flow of cocaine. We've talked about this, the ships being there. Trump has posted on social media that they positively identified narco-terrorists from the cartel Tren de Aragua operating a small boat carrying drugs to the U.S. The strike resulted in the death of 11 terrorists by his definition. I don't know how drug cartel members are terrorists. He continued, Trump wrote, "Please let this serve as notice to anybody ever thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Beware. Thank you for your attention on this matter." 55 exclamation points after that. Marco Rubio said that the U.S. had conducted a lethal strike against a drug vessel that departed from Venezuela and, quote, was being operated by a designated narco-terrorist organization. The war on drugs continues. The war on drugs that was launched in the early 1970s by the Nixon administration and has gone through various phases of more intensification and less intensification over the decades is going to go through a more intensified period. The U.S. military is getting involved again. Remember, the U.S. military was involved. It was bombing, it was firebombing areas in Colombia that were being cultivated for growth of cocaine. I'm not sure why we're not bombing Colombia right now, or Venezuela for that matter, where the cocaine is being bought. So there's nothing new here other than we're using the Navy and we're bombing boats. In the past, a boat like this, identified as carrying cocaine, would have been stopped by the Coast Guards, boarded, or it would have been a shootout, and it would have been destroyed anyway. This is more drama, missiles, maybe drones, who knows. Military's doing it, it's not the Coast Guard, those wimps in the Coast Guard. I'm saying wimps, I'm joking, but this is kind of the attitude of the Trump administration. We need the big boats, the big ships. We should send an aircraft carrier over there. But it's just the continuation of the drug war. This is not going to stop the flow of cocaine coming into the United States. If they can't bring it in the Caribbean, they'll bring it in through the Pacific. They can't bring it in through the Pacific, they'll bring it through the Mexican border. They can't bring it through the Mexican border, they'll build tunnels and they'll bring it under the Mexican border. They'll take it to Canada and bring it through Canada. They'll fly it in. They will find ways to get it in. Nothing the United States has done in the entire history of the war on drugs, which is now 50 plus years. 50 plus years. Nothing the United States has done has slowed the flow of cocaine or heroin or any other drugs, fentanyl, into the United States. And nothing, this is my prediction, not a difficult one to make, nothing the Trump administration is going to do is going to dramatically change the flow of drugs into the United States. You can blow up boats, you can blow up ships, you can threaten people. There's too much profit, too many desperate people, and too much profit to be ignored. You want to stop the flow of drugs into the United States? Legalize the drugs. That'll do it. Legalize drugs. Profit margin goes away. Violence goes away. The gangs go away. Venezuela is getting ready for an armed attack by the United States. We've talked about this as well. If Venezuela, Maduro said today, if Venezuela were to be attacked, it would immediately pass to a period of armed struggle in defense of national territory. He said the U.S. buildup in the Caribbean was the biggest threat our continent, the entire continent, has faced in the last 100 years. So tensions in the Southern Caribbean are growing, and Trump is putting on a show. It's what he's good at, putting on shows. And he's putting on a show, and he's blowing up boats, and he could blow up other stuff, he'd blow up other stuff. He's the macho tough guy who's going to stop the drugs single-handedly. But ain't happening. And it's a waste of money and effort and time to try to stop these drugs from coming in. So, anyway. More Trump theater. Where are we? Yeah. So you probably heard over the last few days that a leading international organization of genocide scholars, experts and scholars. Here's a typical headline. The world's leading association of genocide scholars has passed a resolution stating that the legal criteria has been met to establish that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. I mean, that sounds pretty definitive. Or the New York Times. On Monday, the International Association of Genocide Scholars, a leading group of academic experts on the topic, declared the Israel policies and actions in Gaza have met legal definition of genocide. The BBC. Israel committing genocide in Gaza, world's leading experts say. That's a typical BBC headline. You got to give them credit for their consistency. PBS. Leading genocide scholar organization says Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Washington Post. Israel's committing genocide in Gaza. Leading scholars association says. And you could go on. Oh, well, last one. CNN. International Association of Genocide Scholars, Israel's actions meet the legal definition. It turns out that this association of of scholars, of genocide experts, is a farce. These are random activists the actual association is an association anybody can join. Even you, who are not an expert on genocide, can join for $125. You need no actual scholarship to join. You need no publications, $125, and you're in. And, if you don't want to pay $125, they might take a lower offer. This is the world's leading association of genocide scholars. Now, by the way, since they've been outed as just a website that takes money and run by activists who then put out press releases claiming to be an international association of genocide scholars. Since they've been outed, they've deactivated the website and their Twitter account. So they disappeared. Leading association of genocide scholars. They're not even defending themselves. They've just disappeared. So no scholars in the world's leading association of genocide scholars. This is the kind of journalism you get. BBC, CNN, none of these, Washington Post, New York Times, none of them try to, find out to what extent this was actually real. They just accepted it. Now again, this is one example among many of the kind of journalism that we're exposed to. So yes, if you've seen the genocide claim by leading scholars, there are a lot of scholars who think Israel's committing genocide. They're just plain wrong. The fact that you're a scholar doesn't give you any access, necessarily any specific access to truth. But it is pretty stunning for the press to just announce leading, and not to check their sources. And the only reason Fox didn't run it is because they don't like the conclusion. Right? The media today is split. They'll run the news if they like it. They're not split. They all agree. They run news they like. But it's not like the right-wing media that didn't run the story is any better at clearing their sources, at verifying the stories, at challenging the lies. Just look at the latest interview with Besant on Fox News, where they accept every one of his lies as factual evidence. Those of you who want to dig deeper into this, not into the media, but into this issue of genocide, there is a major, how many pages is this? This is like 45 pages or something, 50-something pages, report that has been published by the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies out of Bar-Ilan University in Israel. And the center's just published a study, extensive, it's extensive. You can get the PDF of it, 8 chapters, basically debunking the genocide allegations, a re-examination of the Israeli-Hamas war from October 7th, 2023 to June 1st, 2025. This was published yesterday. I'll just read you from the intro. The following study offers a thorough historical exploration and a quantitative statistical analysis of the allegation that the State of Israel committed genocide against Gazan population following the October 7, 2023 massacre. Specifically, we address the claims that Israel intentionally starved the Gazan population, that the IDF forces deliberately massacred citizens, and that the Israeli Air Force carried out indiscriminate bombings, failing to distinguish between combatants and civilians, and conducted disproportionate strikes. The goal of this study is to carefully assess both primary and secondary sources in order to draw independent conclusions about the factual aspects of the conflict. This process involves reviewing testimonies, primary sources, and the methodology of data collection utilized by organizations and researchers promoting the genocide allegation, as well as conducting statistical analysis and distinguishing between narratives promoted by various parties and verified facts. The purpose of our investigation is to identify the factual events that occurred, not to engage in legal or ethical discourse. While discussing those legal and ethical implications is important, we firmly believe such discussions cannot be grounded in a solid foundation of facts to be meaningful as well as relevant. The conclusion is there's no genocide, and that Israel has conducted a war that has been careful not to kill civilians like no other country probably ever has. But I encourage you to check it out yourself. 8 chapters. You can view the PDF. The PDF has 50. No, I'm wrong. It has. This is 311 pages. 311 pages. So this is a real academic, scholarly investigation. If you're interested in accessing this, you can check out besacenter.org, besacenter.org, and you can find it there. Published yesterday. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, yesterday, China put on a show. God, did they put on a show? They had a military parade. Now let me tell you, authoritarian nations know how to do military parades. I mean, it completely put to shame the Trump, laughable parade of a few months ago. I mean, this was beautifully synchronized, marching, saluting. I mean, the lines were perfectly straight. I mean, you watch videos of this and wow, they must have trained for hours and hours and hours and hours. I mean, I'm glad that the U.S. military trains for combat rather than trains for parades. And I hope it continues to train for combat, not for parades. The Israeli military could never do a parade like this. Never do a parade like this. And if it could, then I'd wonder about whether it was combat ready. So China had this massive parade. She invited Putin and Kim Jong-un, or whatever his name is, the brutal dictator of North Korea, to see the parade. It was massive, thousands of troops marching, hundreds, maybe thousands of weapon systems, equipment, a lot of the newest equipment that the Chinese government has been developing was out on display, and quite impressive. They brought out drones, the latest kind of coolest drones, the airplanes, a lot of the weapons, indeed most of the weapons and platforms for weapons, a lot of them are new. Most of them were not new, but a few of them were new. Every land, sea, and air platform that the Chinese are displaying right now is more modern than what the United States and Europe have in their inventory. Now, newer doesn't mean better, but Chinese are producing new weapons, designing new weapons, bringing to the forefront new weapons. Now, the big difference, of course, is that Western military equipment is being tested daily in the Middle East, in Israel, by Israel, which you can't put a number on the value of that testing, right? I mean, that in and of itself is probably worth more than all the foreign aid the United States provides Israel. But put that aside. Western equipment is being tested in Ukraine and was tested in the past in Iraq, and is being tested constantly in conflicts around the world. So we know Western equipment works, or in some cases doesn't, and we can fix it. these are shiny new toys that the Chinese are bringing out, dangerous toys, destructive toys. The question is, will they work? The new weapons and platforms show continuing advance in military R&D and real investment. You saw unmanned submarines, unmanned aircraft, both rotary and fixed wing aircraft. You saw a whole array of new types of missiles. And then you've got UAVs. Indeed, there was a UAV on the back of every infantry fighting vehicle. And what you have now is years ago, the Chinese military basically was a copy of the Russian. Their weapon systems were all copies of Russian weapon systems. Their planes were copies of MiGs. Their tanks were copies of the T-series tanks. The one thing that's astounding about this parade and about the state of Chinese weapons, these are all made in China. These are all designed in China. These are all being innovated in China. They have unbelievable indigenous capabilities. Indeed, Russian weapon systems are crap. Crap is a compliment. And I've talked about this since the beginning of the Ukraine war, actually for a long time before that, but certainly since the beginning of the Ukraine war, that Russian weapon systems are crap. I'm not so sure about Chinese weapon systems. We don't know. We've never seen them in combat. We don't know. But they are cutting edge technology. They're state of the art. They've invested a lot, and there's a lot of R&D going into it. Now, of course, this is just a parade. You can parade anything. The real question is, what is their capabilities? Can they fight? Are they going to be effective? Are their soldiers well trained? Highly motivated? They can parade. They can march in synchrony, unlike American troops and Israeli troops. But can they fight? Will the weapon systems work? They look amazing on paper. It's very different. And America does have the advantage of constantly, I've read stories where the company that makes the F-35 says that the experience, the knowledge, the feedback they get from Israel's use of the F-35 is worth hundreds of billions of dollars in their ability to then constantly make the airplane better, refine it, add tools to it. So it's going to be interesting to see if these weapon systems the Chinese have are as good as advertised. I hope we never see that. But now, look, this parade was there to wow a lot of the participants, which were mainly China's Asian neighbors, to tell them that the focus is, this is the power, this is who they're going to have to deal with. It's not the United States, it's China, and that they should, because China has this amazing force. Now, I don't think this changes anything. I think that the countries that want to cozy up to China will, and I think the countries that don't will now look at this and say, okay, we need to spend more money on defense and we need to get more advanced weapon systems. I don't think this changes anything. One of the questions you have to ask, though, and by the way, there's a guy on Twitter, a commentator, Mike Ryan, who's a strategist, a retired Army Major General, who's been pretty good on Ukraine and Russia and China. So I encourage you to, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, to follow him. What's Putin thinking? One thing this makes very clear. Russia is a third-rate military power. Third-rate. The United States and NATO, first-rate. China, first or second, we don't know. Russia, not in the picture at all. Russia does not have anywhere near the technological capabilities, the modern production capabilities, the modern tech, the modern R&D that China has. It doesn't have the drones. It doesn't have the airplanes. It doesn't have the unmanned submarines and unmanned everything else. It doesn't have the sophisticated missiles. It has brute force, but that's about it. So, Russians have nukes, yeah, they have nukes. They have nukes. If they work, nobody really knows. If they work. They're old. Again, no tech. We know the Chinese nukes are all new. China's building up a massive nuclear arsenal. Remember too, that China and Russia fought wars. There is disputed territory between China and Russia. Russia's pulled many of the troops that it had on its eastern border, it's pulled them to Ukraine. I mean, imagine if China decided one day, Eastern Russia should really be ours. Let Russia have the West, we'll take the East. Other than with nukes, which might or might not work, Russia has no capacity to stop them. It has no military capabilities that can match the Chinese. Anyway, this is where we are, and it is interesting. Xi made a speech about, this was all to commemorate the victory over the Japanese in World War II. He made a speech about the reinvigorated Chinese nation. The Chinese nation is being unstoppable. A very non-communist speech, much more nationalistic speech, which I think is what they are, nationalist, fascist types. He didn't mention the United States, which pissed Trump off. Trump was commenting today about how he should have, Xi is a friend of his, but Xi really should have mentioned the United States. We helped them a lot to win World War II. We helped them. We won the war for them. But Xi didn't mention Trump. I mean, the whole thing is kind of a snub to Trump. Trump cannot put on a parade. I can, says Xi. Trump wasn't invited. He wasn't there. This is Victory Day, 80 years since victory, and the Americans are now represented. China perceives itself to be on the rise, to be replacing the United States soon. Just something funny that happened on the sideline of this. They're walking, Putin, Xi, and Kim. I hate to call him Kim, like he doesn't deserve a first name. Like the brutal dictator of North Korea, the Trump's best friend. Anyway, three of Trump's best friends, right? These are the three people Trump most admires in the world. And they didn't invite him to the party. They had a party and he wasn't invited. He must be feeling really bad. Anyway, before I get to this kind of funny story, 7 out of 20 were short 13 super chats to make our goal. 13 super chats to make our goal of 20 super chats in 45 minutes. Wow, that's pretty lame that we haven't met that goal, because that shouldn't be that hard. 20 in 45 minutes, that's one every 2 minutes. We usually crush that easily. So let me appeal to you to support the show. Support the show by asking a question. Asking a question also contributes to the show, because then we then I answer the question, so that contributes content. And you can also do a sticker. Those count. It does count the stickers as well, and that's just a way for us to trade value for value. You listen to the show, you pay for listening, which is the value you provide. So let's say we get some new people, first timers, second timers, third timers, to do some stickers or super chats to help us meet our challenge. 20 super chats in 45 minutes. YouTube is going to be very disappointed if I can't meet this one. I mean, we did really well yesterday, but I'm greedy, so I want us to do well today as well. Why just do well one day? We should do well every day. There we go. We got a few. We're good. But the counter doesn't count them all. It's really weird. It's not catching up. You notice that, guys? Sometimes it counts them and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to be complaining to YouTube. Definitely complaining to YouTube. All right, we do have a monetary goal, much more important than the number of chats, is the monetary goal. We do have a monetary goal of $250 in the first hour, for every hour. So let's try to make the 250. We're at 183, so we need $70 to make it up. Again, value for value. Let's be traders here and make it worthwhile for me to be spending this time doing the show for you and you expressing the value of what I provide. So in a hot mic conversation between Xi and Putin, which again, in brutal dictator of North Korea, walking by them, Putin, and this has been captured by Chinese state media and broadcast live, right? Putin is talking about human organ transplants and the possibility of living to be 150 years or even forever, right? The Putin's translator is heard saying in Chinese, biotechnology is continuously developing. The translator added, after an audible passage by Putin to Xi, human organs can be continually transplanted. The longer you live, the younger you become, and you can even achieve immortality. Now we know what drives these guys. They want to be immortal. Now, they want to be dictators for life, and they expect life to be forever. It's actually unbelievably disgusting that these people, that these monsters, all three of them are monsters. All three of them are way down there in one of the low rungs of hell, at least should be. And all of them are here, pushing this idea of life extension. They don't deserve it. There's a sense in which technology shouldn't be available to authoritarian thugs. When they talk about transplants, the thing that goes in my mind is, are they going to ask the recipient, the donor, if they want to donate, or are they just going to take it so that they can stay young? When they say things like, human organ transplants, the possibility of living to 150 and continuously transplanted, organs continuously transplanted, where are these organs coming from? Political prisoners? Just any prisoners? Just people randomly taken from the streets? They can do that. They can get away with it. It's scary. Chinese people should be scared. Anyway, but this is Putin's, you can see Putin's fantasy. This is Putin, talking about this and emphasizing this. This is what he really wants, is to live forever. To live forever and inflict his horror on all of us forever. All right, finally, we talked about weapon systems. One of the real amazing stories, I think books will be written about this in the future, really amazing stories, is the story of the Ukrainian military. The Ukrainian industrial response to the war with Russia. The ability of the Ukrainians to pivot to designing and building and producing and making some of the world's most advanced drones. And by advanced here, I mean not necessarily the greatest and best tech. What I mean by advanced is advanced for the battlefield. I mean, in 2022, Ukraine produced 0 military drones. 0. In 2024, it produced 2 million. 2 million. In 2025, the goal is more than 4 million. Now, these are not just cookie cutter, all the same looking drone. These are drones that are constantly being changed, adjusted, whose technology is constantly being modified to keep up with battlefield demands, and to keep up with the response that the Russians have to them. The secret here, which I think is very, very indicative, the secret here is that the money to buy the drones is not allocated from the top down. It does not go from the Defense Department to the military-industrial complex. The money goes to the units on the battlefield. They get to decide what drones to buy. They provide the feedback to the engineers what drones are needed. And there is a constant flow of information. There's a constant trial and error going on. Ingenuity on the fly, in battle conditions. I don't think this has ever happened in the history of battle, and at this speed anyway, and in the history of weapon systems. So, whatever money the government allocates, it allocates to the units. The cash, the units, the soldiers then decide what to buy, provide the feedback to the engineers, and they get the drones. That's not the end of it. They provide feedback to the engineer on how the drone has done, maybe a software patch, maybe a different hardware feature is added, and maybe a new generation of drones is being produced. We're talking about over 4 million drones from a country that 3 years ago produced zero, zilch, nada, no drones. So we don't have a Soviet-era style bureaucracy running procurement for the Ukrainian military. What we have is a Silicon Valley-like trial and error, build it, make it, test it, try it again. Startups, we don't have a few big, that's the other thing. It's not like Ukraine has 2 big drone manufacturers that make all their drones. No, there are dozens of small drone companies building prototypes, testing them, and then going into production. Local mayors, city mayors, can redirect funding to buy drones. School teachers and nuns raise money for soldiers to buy equipment that is not available via government procurement. And again, drone requirements come from the soldiers, from the people on the field, the people who use them. Exact opposite of, sadly, how procurement works in the United States. This is an ideal model for the design and deployment of weapon systems in the 21st century. If we don't necessarily have to learn the weapon systems, because each combat conditions are going to be different. But we certainly can learn a huge amount from the method, the system by which they procure these weapon systems. That's what we should be learning. This, again, startup Silicon Valley attitude. This supply chain with constant, instant feedback. And if the United States can learn from that, it's got a shot at matching just the sheer size and the ability of the Chinese to produce in massive quantities. Otherwise, we're in trouble, as this parade illustrated. All right, guys. We have, that was the news for Wednesday, September 3rd. Let's see, the 45 minutes are up and we only got 14 super chats. Not good. You're gonna have to up your game, guys. No, Linda, I don't think it counts because it came in after the count. But of course, the money counts, which is much more important. All right, I'm here to remind you to support the show in a variety of ways to do it. One way is obviously through chat, super chat, and stickers. Another way is by going to Patreon, patreon.com, and just search Yaron Brook Show, and you can become a monthly supporter of the show, which is incredibly helpful, incredibly valuable to me, to the show, to its continuity. So that is great. Please consider doing that. You can also go to PayPal and do the same thing on PayPal. So please consider becoming a monthly supporter of the Yaron Brook Show, particularly those of you out there who listen to this as a podcast, who are not here live, who can't contribute live. Please, for those of you who are out there on a podcast, please consider becoming monthly supporters and trading with me, becoming traders with the Yaron Brook Show. I'll also remind you that we have 3 sponsors. The Ayn Rand Institute is a sponsor of the show. It is encouraging everybody to sign up for Ayn Rand Institute Live. These are live courses in philosophy, on Ayn Rand's philosophy and objectivism, including a course on the philosophy of objectivism. It starts in October. You should be signing up now. You can find a link to sign up at aynrand.org/start here. You can get a Yaron Brook Show listener discount. The code for that discount is 25YBS10, 25YBS10, and you can take these courses anytime you want. You don't have to apply. You just have to register. You can do homework assignments or not. You can get feedback directly or not. You can be in the live class and ask questions or not. Up to you. You can do it at your own pace, in your own individualized way. So please consider going, just check it out and signing up. I think you'll really enjoy it. I think you'll learn a lot, and your knowledge and ability to apply and implement objectivism will increase significantly. Alex Epstein is the world's leading authority, thinker, communicator on issues related to energy, electricity, issues related to energy more broadly, and climate change, environmentalism, and what's going on with the Trump administration's efforts around these issues. If you care about energy, and I think we all should care about energy, it's what fuels us, right? Then you should follow Alex. You should learn from Alex, and you should become a better communicator by reading Alex's talking points, where he gives you, the real arguments that you should be making to your friends and colleagues and family members who have really bad ideas with regard to fossil fuels and energy and stuff like that. Alex Epstein, alexepstein.substack.com. And then finally, Hendershot Wealth, Hendershot with 2 T's at the end, wealth, one word, hendershotwealth.com/YBS, for products that can help you save money on taxes. Particularly if you have significant, large capital gains and you owe, as a consequence, or will owe when you sell it, a lot of capital gains taxes, you should check out the products that Hendershot Wealth has to offer. hendershotwealth.com/YBS, or check out the video interview I did with Robert Hendershot on my YouTube channel. If you go to playlists, check out the playlists for sponsors, and it's right there. All right, let's go with the super chat. We'll start with Michael, a generous Michael, who has a $100 super chat question. That's fantastic, Michael. Thank you. And please, the rest of you guys should consider being like Michael. Do you think it's immature for objectivists to be frustrated or impulsive about not being able to change the culture yet? Or should we be morally ambitious and expect of our fellow citizens to be moral enough to recognize the truth in this philosophy? I think there's certainly an immaturity about not thinking through what is necessary in order to change a culture. You need a theory. If you're going to have an opinion about it, you need a theory. To lash out at people, why don't you get it? When, it's obvious most of them don't and won't, And it'll take a long time for them to get it because it takes a long time to change ideas. And in particular, it takes a long time to change fundamental ideas. Ideas about epistemology and ethics. These are very difficult to shift. It's very difficult to change a culture. And Objectivism is very young in terms of its efforts to do so. So I think being impatient with regard to this is unhelpful. I think you should be morally ambitious, but there's no point in demanding something that that the other person cannot give you. You can't demand that they salute objectivism when they don't understand it. And you can't expect something they're not ready for. So what you need to do is keep going after and keep helping promote these ideas to the people who are most likely to embrace them. And to give them wide, berth. This is why you should be supporting the Ayn Rand Institute, you should be supporting the Yaron Brook Show, because I think these are the best avenues today to expose people to Ayn Rand's ideas and to encourage them and to get them to read her books. And we're not going to win the battle unless we can do much more of that. And, so that is what is currently needed. Being upset and being angry and being frustrated because not more people understand the philosophy doesn't give you anything. Asking why. What could we be doing better? How could we be better communicators of these ideas? But look, Ayn Rand was the best communicator of these ideas. Atlas Shrugged has sold millions and millions and millions of copies. She didn't convince that many people. But maybe she convinced the most important people. So it can't just be better communication. There is obviously something in the culture that makes it very difficult for us to have dramatic, fast change. So be morally ambitious. Be culturally ambitious. Be ambitious in the goals you set for yourself in terms of communicating and supporting those who communicate the ideas of objectivism. But getting angry and impulsive about it doesn't help. All right, Wes, thank you. $50 sticker. Really, really appreciate that. That reminds me I should thank the sticker people. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Raphael. I think you did a bunch of them. Esoteric Dichotomy, thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, RDF. Thank you, Volta. Thank you, there's Raphael again a couple of times. Thank you, Jonathan must be there, maybe not. Maybe today, he took the day off today. But let's see, I think we caught everybody. Yep, I think I got everybody. So thank you guys. Thanks to all the people who do stickers and all the people who do super chats. And I appreciate the support. Ben, I spoke to a colleague about a British water company scandal today. I realized that I knew very little about how privatized water would have been supplied. Would franchising be valid, like the system they have in France? God, I do not know what the system is in France, so I don't know how that works. But, I mean, I don't know enough about the history of private water and how private water can be delivered and could be delivered. I'd have to really do the research into that and do some thinking. But at the end of the day, think about the fact that the resource itself should be private. The aquifer, the place in which the water is held, just like the oil is private, the water should be private. So private companies should be able to access, mine, drill for the water, and then be able to supply that water to other companies, I think, that specialize in the last mile, that specialize in delivering water to the last mile. And how those companies compete with one another, how they deliver the product to the final, to the resident. I mean, that's going to be interesting. You could imagine a variety of different water tanks operated by different companies, getting their water from different other companies. And you can imagine every new development having a very simple, like dug in trench, which different companies can place their hardware in. And it can be easily added. And you can imagine technologies that would develop to easily add new hardware, new pipes. And new competitors can enter the market, and you could do amazing things. It would be a lot harder with existing homes, which are and businesses, which is the vast majority of them. But I'm sure you could come up with unbelievable. I'm sure the market would come up with unbelievably creative ways to deliver water to homes and be competitive. So a lot of times when it comes to markets, you have to say, I don't know how that'll work. Nobody knows how that'll work. Indeed, that's the beauty of markets. They are discovery processes. Markets are discovery processes. Markets discover, invent, create new ways of doing things that didn't exist before. All right. Thanks, Ben. Good question. Lucinda, let's reach those goals. Thank you, Lucinda, for helping us reach those goals. Really, really appreciate it. Dave, $50. Thank you, Dave. Oh, and Carl Meisenbach, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate it. What's your assessment of how others promote the idea that every individual has the exact same cognitive capacity, and therefore all beliefs are equal based on that premise? Cognitive egalitarianism. What's your assessment of how others promote the idea that every individual has the exact same cognitive capacity, and therefore all beliefs are equally based on that premise? God, I'm not sure I understand the question, but you don't have many people who actually say that we all have the same cognitive capacity. At least I don't know of any. Maybe some people in the far left do. The egalitarians of the far left say, well, we all have exactly the same capabilities, the same intelligence, the same abilities. It's possible, but, and we're corrupted. Yeah, I guess that's the case they make. We're corrupted by society, so we'll all have the same cognitive abilities when we're born, but then society corrupts us, and blacks, are repressed, and therefore their cognitive abilities never developed, and women are oppressed, so they're supposedly, this is what they argue. I mean, I think there's something true to that, in a sense that I think you can't suppress people's cognitive abilities quite dramatically, and culture does that quite effectively. But the idea that people have the same capacity when they're born is just absurd and ridiculous. I mean, it's just wrong. And I think it comes from, the reason it sustains itself, this idea, is because, egalitarianism is such a powerful idea. People believe equality is the be-all, end-all. And they also believe that if they give up on equality of outcome, equality of, we're all equal in our abilities, not just in our outcomes, not just in our rights. If you give up on that idea, they believe, then you're a fascist. Because then you assume some people are better than others. And they can't differentiate between better being smarter than better being more moral, and morality being more important than smarts. They can't differentiate between character and intelligence, and between the importance of character and the importance of intelligence versus the importance of intelligence. So it's they are so opposed to hierarchy of any form that they're willing to give up and sacrifice facts, reality, in order to pretend that the world that they wish existed, I guess, actually did exist. But it doesn't. We're all different. All of us are different. And that's what they hate to acknowledge. Dave, do you think both right and left political parties are working together against American citizens, since they seem to be actively working to prevent the public from accessing information surrounding the Epstein debacle? No, I mean, I don't think so, not regularly. Now, when an issue like this it comes across, I think that there are probably, I don't know, again, and we don't know a lot, but they're probably powerful people who are named in these files, who are going to be named by the victims. Whether they committed a crime or not, we don't know. Who would rather not have their name in the newspapers. And some of them are Republicans, and some of them are Democrats. Some of them are Republican donors, and some of them are Democratic donors. And they're putting pressure vis-a-vis this particular case on politicians. Don't disclose, don't bring it out, bury this, let's forget it, let's move on, forget about all this. So, yeah, it's possible that on particular things they work together, but no, there's no big conspiracy theory of the political class to screw us. It's because their ideas inevitably lead them to doing bad things to us. And then there are specific cases where you get powerful people on both sides of the aisle who are going to support a particular cause because it's in their so-called interests. Thank you, Dave. And maybe the lies are cover for a deeper plan. Maybe the lies were implanted in them by demons. Maybe the lies are part of God's plan for, I don't know. I mean, you can say any random thing you want to say. It's meaningless. They're lying. And they're lying in stupid ways. And they're lying, I mean, it's clear why they're lying. They're clearing what the deeper plan is. The deeper plan is, and this is a deeper plan that most politicians have, but few can implement. The deeper plan is to make the American people oblivious to the truth on all things. To make them not care about reality. And to just accept what the authorities tell them. It's right out of the authoritarian playbook. It's right out of this is how to become a dictator. Lie grandiosely and so frequently and so bigly that people, it completely desensitizes people to lies. And then you can get away with anything. Robert, this super chat counts towards Creator's goal. It does. Thank you, Robert. Tessa, 18 more super chats to go. We didn't make it though. Although I think if it had counted all the super chats that actually were made, we would have got there. There's some flaw in the software that's not counting everything. I will complain. Paul, do you think the current Gaza offensive will finally put an end to Hamas rule? God, I don't know. I think there's going to be a deal. I don't think the offensive is going to go through. There's a lot of pressure. Yeah, we will see. We will see what exactly happens. But will Hamas be thoroughly, systematically, unequivocally destroyed by the end of all of this? I hope so. I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence. I'm 60-40 against, for what it's worth. I just think Hamas will find a way to embed itself in whatever remains in Gaza, and Israel will not ultimately do what's necessary to get rid of it. Benjamin says, have you heard of the Norwegian oil funds ethical committee pulling funds out of companies involved in Israel? Any opinions? What do you think of the long-term effects politically, diplomatically? Well, I think it's damn right evil of them to do it. I think it's disgusting and evil. They'll invest in Saudi Arabia, they'll invest in the UAE, They'll invest in a lot of countries that abuse individual rights constantly, all the time. And Israel is defending itself, and they'll penalize Israel. So Norway has just been horrible, just horrible, terrible on the whole Israel thing. And it says something about the moral status of the Norwegian government and maybe the Norwegian people, if this is what they believe. So I think it's terrible. What are the long-term effects? I mean, very little ultimately. Diplomatically, I don't think Israel has that much clout. Politically, I don't know Norwegian politics to know if it has any. But it's going to create a situation where the fund, which shouldn't exist, the Norwegian oil fund shouldn't exist. It is a travesty. It should have never existed. Is being politicized by particular political elements, political groups, and that'll only increase, and that'll make it less effective and less productive, and it'll make the returns of it less good. And yeah, so it'll make it. It won't make it. It won't. It's going to make the fund less successful. But the fund is illegitimate to begin with. There should be no such thing as sovereign wealth funds. All wealth is private, not sovereign. Sovereign should have zero wealth. Kim says, you said don't save when you're young, but what if I want the option to retire early and travel the world for a few years? Look, I'm not saying don't save when you're young. God, I mean, maybe I said that, but that's not what I mean. I'm saying it's not a priority. You have to set up your values. You have to figure out what they are. And then, you know, if you've got a particular goal that you're saving for, like I want to buy a car in 5 years, a nice car. Yeah, well, save for that. What I mean is don't save for retirement. Now, you're saying you want to travel the world. Why not travel the world now when you're young? Why not every year take a couple of weeks off and go travel? I mean, when you're young, you're probably going to enjoy it more. It'll add more to your life because it'll give you knowledge and experiences you won't have otherwise. And I don't think if you work hard and later in life and you save, you'll be able to travel later in life as well. But it seems like these trade-offs of, I think you really need to think them through and make sure you're making the right trade-off. And my point is, don't give up the present for the future if you don't have to. And look, if let's say you're in a profession, let's say you're a teacher, and you believe, justifiably or not, put that aside, you believe that your income is never going to increase significantly, right? It's going to increase, you're going to make more money, but not a lot. And you're in your mid-20s, and you think the next 40 years, I'm going to make about what I'm making now, inflation adjusted, maybe more, but not a huge amount more. Then I'd say save now. But if you believe that you will make a lot more money in your 40s and 50s than you're making in your 20s, then there's no urgency to save. So the whole question of saving when you're young is context related. It's related to the context of your expectations about the future, your expectations about your future income. Again, if you think your income is not going to improve dramatically, then save. If you think it will improve dramatically, then what's the hurry? Right? What's the hurry? But again, it's very contextual. Michael, thoughts on the Italian people and Italian culture? I mean, it's tough to draw conclusions about Italian culture, Italian people. The Italians are obviously very warm, open, vivacious, expressive people, and I like that. The hustlers, but they also, it seems like, but this is a lot of this is shaped by the political culture in Italy. Not particularly entrepreneurial at an advanced level, maybe entrepreneurial in terms of very small businesses, but not in terms of larger businesses. Heavily regulated, heavily controlled, being willing to put up with all of that. Like, when can you put the air conditioning on? Like on the 15th of September, all the air conditioning in Florence is turned off. It's by law. You cannot run air conditioning after the 15th of September. But think about a culture and a people willing to tolerate that, willing to accept that. There's a big difference between Italians of the North and Italians of the South. But generally, look, at some point in their history, the predecessor of this culture produced some of the greatest works of art and science and literature in the history of mankind, and much of that was done right here in Florence, in a I don't know, radius of 100 miles around Florence. It had an amazing concentration of genius, and there was something in the culture that promoted that and enhanced that. Sadly, Italy has lost a lot of that, and look, Italy. Saw the Ferrari and Maserati and Lamborghini. It's not an accident that all your really fancy, beautiful, fast cars are Italian. Italian fashion. Oh God, I had another example. Italy had great inventors early on. Marconi, Fermi was an Italian physicist. So the culture here, it promotes some level of certain types of entrepreneurial activity, and it's very focused on beauty. It's very focused on beauty. And beauty is a good thing, so I love it. I love, the people are well-dressed. I'm not, but they are. The cars, again, the Ferraris, the Lamborghinis, very few people can drive them, the Maseratis, but they are beautiful. There is definitely an aesthetic to the design of the cities and the buildings and everything around it. But Italy, sadly, is more about history than the future. History, you come to Italy to see history. You don't come here for the future. And that's sad. Italy is also one of the fastest shrinking countries in the world. Its politics are very divisive, very extreme. You've got real leftists and real right-wingers. The center is probably smaller than in many other places around the world. It's an interesting place. I don't have big conclusions yet about it. Michael says, a lot of similarities between the Israelis and the Italians. A little bit in terms of just we use our hands, and Israelis use their hands, Italians use their hands. The energy, the vivaciousness, the chutzpah, the no organized lines, elbowing, using your elbows a little bit. I think in those senses there's similarities in the culture. But Israel's much more entrepreneurial, much more future-oriented than Italy is. Esoteric Economy says, stickers are not super chats, blank super chats are not stickers. Anyway, I'm excited for the future, but need more income, need to work hard. Yep, we all do. Linda, does this count? It didn't, I don't think it did. Okay, last question is from Lee from the UK. He says, if a weapon good on paper turns out to be bad in practice, would this entail a reevaluation of the initial paper? Yes, I absolutely think it does. What's the point of the paper if it doesn't work in practice? Ideally, but this is true in all business, right? You can have a car that is good on paper and you've missed something in practice. It doesn't take into account certain human, the way people like to drive their cars or like to interact with their cars, and then you have to iterate and you have to get to a point where this great idea on paper becomes a great idea in reality, and that means changes, and those changes need to be applied to the paper as well. But I think most entrepreneurial companies engage in that kind of process of an idea, test, change, adjust the idea, test, adjust, test, and the more you can do that in real time, in the world today, you need to do it more and more in real time, the more competitive you become. All right, guys, it is late here. It's already 20 to midnight. I will see you tomorrow, I think at the same time, 4 p.m. East Coast time, so late for me. And it'll also be a shorter show, more like today. Yeah, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.